All right, just bear with me for a second. Almost there, almost there. Just bear with me. All right, let's start by saying Barak Tehawa, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chakudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one, once again, is Why is the name America not in prophecy? And pretty much this lesson comes from an inspirational video I was just watching. Actually, I was watching it yesterday. Elder Apostle Tar's video is almost 3 hours long. I watched about 2 hours yesterday, and then I was watching the rest of it this morning. And pretty much, he mentioned about breakdowns. He mentioned about, how we've gone through all these different breakdowns. But then he's mentioned about going over them again. So Lord's will, I want to tackle one he mentioned, Revelation 18, because that's a very important chapter in prophecy to let us know who this is speaking about and where we are as far as prophecy is concerned. So the reason why you'll not find the name America in the Bible is because those terms didn't exist back then. When you look at the origins of the name America itself, what year did the name America first? What year did the name America first use? Should have worded that different, but the name America was first used in 1507 on a world map created by German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller. He named the newly discovered continent in honor of Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci, who had explored the region. So America was named after Amerigo. So Amerigo is the masculine way, America is the feminine way. So prior to 1507, you didn't have a place or continent called America, but the name Amerigo was around. And then you have other variations of Celtic language and other languages that go into, that name Amerigo, but the name America itself did not exist until 1507. So it is impossible for us to find the name America in the English Bible, and that was written back there by the prophets and specifically named it America. No, they just named it what the Lord gave them to name it. And in the case of America, the Lord gave it the name, many different names, but one of the names they gave it was Babylon the Great. All right. Now, when we go to, I also typed in, did the name America exist before 1507? No, the name America is in the context of a continent did not exist before 1507. So if but the scriptures were written thousands of years prior to that. So if the name didn't exist till 1507, how could they have actually written down, okay, America, the great, it's going to, and Trump is going to be the president when this whole thing goes down, and, so on and so forth. No, the administration of Trump and then the different cabinets, they will be administering, the micro CHIP as the MOTB. It ain't going to say it like that, because if it said it like that, the Bible wouldn't be around. Point blank. It's already bad enough that this book is tearing Esau's ass up. So how much more if it was written that plain? The Lord said it would be pretty much written, as a puzzle. As we read in Isaiah, the 28th chapter. But let's go to Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. It says, surely the Lord power will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets, because these things are secret. And Yahushua said when he comes back, he's going to come back as a thief in the night. So a lot of people is going to get caught off guard, even though they're being told what's going on. Because not everyone can see the mysteries. Not everyone can see and understand, the prophecies that are being played out right now in front of the whole world. Now you have some individuals that could see it, but they still don't have the full picture. You have some so-called Edomite, pastors and preachers that speak about certain things, certain points, but they still don't have the full picture, because they still cannot break down the whole book of Revelation. And the thing about it is, the Lord, said that he would reveal his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. So if they can't break down the book of Revelation, that means that they're not prophets. And if they can't, and if they're not prophets, they're what? False prophets. All right. So it says, surely the Lord power will do nothing, but he revealeth the secret unto his servants, the prophets. The lion hath roared, who will not fear? The Lord power hath spoken, who can but prophesy? All right, so let's move on. I'm going to bring this here, but I want to bring these two back. Because, this, I had this like probably for a couple of days already. Just sitting there, on the chat GPT. I typed in, is America Babylon the Great? It says the idea that America is Babylon the Great is a theological and symbolic interpretation of often discussed in religious or prophetic context. Yeah, the Israelites, among the Israelites, because these other nations, well, let's just deal with Esau and Jacob, because the other nations, they're more so into, other religions, more so than Israel and the Edomites. All right. It says, especially by some Christian groups who read the book of Revelation literally or prophetically. Yeah, because it's prophetic. You have something called preterism, which preterism means that all the prophecies in the Bible were already fulfilled. And then you have also dispensationalism, which are those that believe that the prophecies will be dispersed or accomplished in different dispensations of time. And that's exactly what it is. And this is where we're at right now in prophecy. All right. It says, what is Babylon the Great? In the book of Revelation, particularly chapter 17 and 18, Babylon the Great is described as a great city or empire associated with wealth. Is not America a great city or empire associated with wealth? Yeah. Immorality, is not America, is not America immoral? And the answer to that is yes. And persecution of the saints. Did not they persecute the saints when they came here to the shores of America? Matter of fact, Elder Apostle just spoke about the Monroe Doctrine and Manifest Destiny. They came here and they slaughtered the saints, the Israelites, the Northern Kingdom, to be able to take over, this society. And matter of fact, when we go to Revelation 17, right, just to show you, and there's others we could go to. The Lord makes a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. This is Revelation 17 and 5. Right, it says, and upon her forehead was a name written, meaning her forehead is what? The whore's forehead, which is America. Mystery, because it is a mystery, but it's not a mystery to us, because the Lord revealed this to us, many, many moons ago. Now in recent years, people are starting to become experts in breaking down Revelation and Daniel and all that, because they've been watching the prophets. And what they do is they'll take little pieces and bits and add, to their, take pieces and bits that they learned from the Israelites and then add their own spin to it so they could sound deep. And then the average person don't know what the hell is going on. So when they hit them with them certain points that the prophets have been making through the Spirit, they get them. And then they can spin the rest of their bullshit on the people. It says Babylon the Great, because America is Babylon the Great. And Babylon goes back to the word Babel or Babal, which means confusion. So this is the greatest conglomeration of confusion in the world. You have all different nations here, different languages. Just everything is confusing. You hear, like, when you outside, especially in these major cities, you hear, the sirens from police cars. You hear the sirens from fire. And just noisy as hell. Nothing but utter confusion. And this is why everybody is so messed up, because so many different schools of thought, have their way in this society, and that goes into the mother of harlots. Mother of harlots, is a representation of all these different religions, because America, in the Constitution, it says you have the freedom of religion, so you can worship whatever you want. So this is why there's so much confusion, and that's why this is also known as the mother of harlots. So you have all these different schools of thought just trying to piece together, or formulate together some BS that they feed the people. And those that are simple or gullible enough fall for these individuals. But the elect are not going to fall for it, because the elect are not going to be deceived. And this is the point here, and abominations of the earth. What is an abomination? A filthy, wicked act. Something that goes totally against the Lord. And one of the main things that goes into is what? This mode lifestyle. Same-sex marriage and all of that. The whole alphabet lifestyle, alphabet people. That's what that goes into. That's why it says here that this place would be a great city or empire associated with wealth, immorality, and persecution of the saints. When you go back in the history, you see that a troop took down Gad. They took down certain Reubenites. They took down Issachar. And they just assimilated themselves into the land, to where now the land of America is in the hands of Esau. Right? Then it goes on to say a place of global influence. Does not America have global influence? We read back in Revelation 17, right? In 1. And there came one of the 7 heads which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying, one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of a fornication. So pretty much the whole world is drinking out of the cup of America, being as the Americans are. And that's why you see so many parallels of these different nations that mimic what is done here in America. Why? Because America has the greatest influence over all these empires. So everything that they're saying here concerning Babylon the Great, so far we see that it applies to America. But see, the thing with the AI is that it doesn't know how to distinguish between, something that's what's the word I could use? For lack of a better word, symbolic. But all of the characteristics apply to a particular place, right? Like America, but it's not going to mention the name America because the name America didn't exist at the time when these prophecies were being written. Hopefully that makes sense. It says a place of global influence, commerce, right? That's where you have the World Trade Center. It used to be the World Trade Center. Now it's a one Trade Center, or one World Trade, or something like that. So the center of commerce and trade is here on the soils of America. You had the two buildings that were knocked down, and then you had Building 7 that went down. Now you have one building, that was built off of the ashes of those other ones. Because this is what happened. They imploded the old world order and the old way of doing business, and now they're implementing the new world order. With a new, with new rules and regulations, stipulations. You see, it says, and corruption. Yeah, America is the biggest corrupt place on the planet. There's corruption in the military, there's corruption in the police force, there's corruption among the firemen, there's corruption in Congress. Everywhere you go in this society, there's corruption. These politicians, and just in general, and the scriptures speak about this place pretty much being corroded. It's corroded physically, and it's corroded morally. So this is Isaiah chapter 14. And 11. Thy pomp, which is your great pride, is brought down to the grave, meaning it's going to be brought low. And the noise of thy viols, meaning your lousy music. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. Right, that's twofold. That's talking about physical. Your infrastructure is decaying, being destroyed, but also the moral, foundation of your society is decayed. So everything about this place is just morally wrong, and this is why if you have a any type of righteousness in you, you won't be comfortable in a place like this. It's like no comfort. You're always, vexed. Something's always vexing you. And people vex the hell out of you. That's why you go places, you just want to go where you want to go and just get the hell out. And then people will fuck with you for no reason. That's them demons. Because they're trying to get us to react. And if we react, then we'll be the bad guys, even though we're the ones being harassed. You see? So it's a vexation. That's why scriptures speak about those that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. All right, so let's go back. It says a symbol of spiritual adultery, right? That is spiritual adultery because they push the image of Caesar Borgia. They push plantation/Renaissance Christianity. And that's spiritual adultery because that form of doctrine, which is another doctrine, that world Christian view, the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, is totally against that. But then you have these demons that are championing for that. They'll look for any excuse to get Esau up in there, and they'll just keep twisting and spinning, even though they don't know what the fuck they talking about. They'll still keep speaking and twisting. And then the people that are simple, they'll be like, oh, man, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. It says false religion. Yeah, because this is a false religion. And eventually they want to make a one world religion or rebellion against the Most High. So all of these things, apply to America. But it's just not being called America in the Bible. It's being called by different names. Something just came to mind. Okay. It's either Jeremiah 50 or 51. Just bear with me 1 second. And this is something that was brought to my attention years back. And then I looked up the other word right here, Jeremiah 50 and 21. Go up against the land of Merathaim, and even against it, and against the inhabitants of Pekah. These are two symbolic names for America, Babylon the Great. Waste and utterly destroy after them, saith Yahweh by Shemel Shai, and do according to all that I have commanded thee. Now we look up this word Merathaim, or Marthayum. Mar is bitter, or double bitterness, right? But it also represents rebellion. See, an epithet of Babylon. This is another name for Babylon. Double bitterness, because Mar is bitter, right? And then it also is repeated rebellion. So it's pretty, and it says a symbolic name of Babylon. So it's a pretty much a place that teaches you and indoctrinates you on how to be rebellious against your power. That's why I say you could worship whatever you want to worship. And then when we look up the word Pequod or Paquawad, it means visitation. And why is it a visitation? Because the Most High is going to visit this place. And it's also here, allegorical name of Babylon. All right. So the Lord is going to visit this place for its rebellious nature. Right. So that all these things apply to America. Why do some people say America is Babylon? Some people associate the U.S. with Babylon the Great because it is a global economic and cultural superpower. And that's exactly what the scriptures say it would be. Because if America is not Babylon the Great, then what or who or where is Babylon the Great? Is Babylon the Great back in ancient Iraq? In Iraq over there on that side of the world? Because if it's over there, then where is this great hustling, bustling city that's making all people of the world rich? Then you have some clowns that said that the Vatican is Babylon the Great. So where are all the people, merchants of the earth and ships going to, either one of those two places, to get their riches, and become rich all throughout the planet? It doesn't fit anybody else but America. This is why the nations, right, although they know that America's full of shit, their policies are full of shit, they still do business with America because they know that they tend to make, they can make money. And that's the only reason why they do it. It says it has strong influence over media, of course, commerce, and politics worldwide, right? Because people they watch stuff, on the web that goes worldwide. They see all of the business and things that are going on in America, the different policies they're passing, legislation, so on and so forth. Some see moral decline or spiritual compromise in its culture. Of course, not some. It's pretty much, there is a moral decline and spiritual compromise. But when you really look at the origins of America was pretty much set up and established, under that pretense, or under the pretense of Christianity. But really, when you dig deep into the roots of it, Sir Thomas Paine, he denounced the Bible. He called the Most High evil or something along those lines. I don't really remember all the details. So you talking about like so-called founding forefathers that said that they were Christians, but a lot of them were Masons, if not all of them, and then the way that they established this society was based off of demonic principles, because they got their funding from the Rothschilds. Haim Solomon, Haim Solomon. I said his name backwards. Haim Solomon. That's a new dude. That's not the old dude. Don't confuse him with damn. Haim Solomon. Don't confuse them. Those two together. So his name is Haim Solomon. That's who came here with money, and he influenced the so-called founding forefathers. So Isaiah 47, right? I just want to go straight to the point. Right here, Isaiah 47 and 12. Stand now with thine enchantments, meaning with your witchcraft, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, right? See if you can conjure up something to help you stay afloat, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail, right? Because you're not going to be able to prevail. There was another one right there. Wherein thou hast labored from thy youth, meaning from the time this place, America, was first created. The energy that went into it. There was, according to what they brought out, that those witch burnings were pretty much the what you call it, the not the handmaids, but there's another name for it. Those that help deliver babies, forget their names, something along those. But that midwives, I believe it's called a midwife. Those were being burnt because they had the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and them. They always had ideas on setting up this medical system to where they could implement their way of so-called healing. And I use that term loosely. All right, so a lot of good practices they demonized, and I'll just leave it at that. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. Right, call up on those ancient demons that you've been worshiping going all the way back since the inception of America, and let's see if they're going to help you. Let's see if you're going to be able to prosper. Let's see if you're going to get out of this situation that you're currently in and heading down into this destruction. Let's see if you'll be able to reverse it. You're not going to be able to reverse it. So let's go back to see what else we got. Others cite America's military inventions, materialism, or permissiveness. Yeah, because their military intervention, is worldwide, just like the Roman Empire. And one of the things that brought the Roman Empire down, besides, well, first and foremost, prophecy, but the economy, they had to keep devaluing their coins, their money, to be able to pay all of those soldiers because they had many different campaigns. They stretched the military out too thin, and that's the same thing America is doing. So let's see. Counter arguments. Now here go the counter arguments. Revelation was written during Roman times, yes. And many scholars believe Babylon originally symbolized the Roman Empire. Well, it does symbolize the Roman Empire, but the modern Roman Empire, not the ancient Roman Empire, which persecuted Christians. Yeah, because that's where, when you go back into the deadly wound, that was actually the Roman Empire, the ancient Roman Empire. Revelation 13:3. And I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death. That's one of the 7 heads. During the time when this vision was being written, the Roman Empire, which was one of those 7 heads, was in power at the time. And that same year where this was written, 95, 96 AD, the Edomite, or the so-called white faction of the Roman Empire, fell to Jake, the Israelites. From that point on, they kept ruling it as the pagan Roman Empire. It wasn't until roughly around 325 AD where, Constantine, because Constantine had converted to Christianity, lightly veiled Christianity at that. So from that point on, it started to turn more into the Holy Roman Empire, and it was Theodorius or something like that. So I think his name is Theodosius, something like that, in 380 AD that made the Christian religion the religion of the empire, something along those lines. You could do the research yourself. But when this was written, that's when this year is when this particular first part of this was fulfilled. And I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death, because the Roman Empire at this point, Edomite Roman Empire, fell. Jake took over. And for a period of 1,000 years, Jake was ruling. A little more than 1,000 years, Jake was ruling. All right. And then it wasn't until the Renaissance period that this beast that everyone thought was dead came back to life. It says, and his deadly wound was healed. And that was during the time of the Renaissance, because that's what gave rise to America. You had your different empires back then, British Empire, so on and so forth. Then America stemmed out of Britain, but America really is a part of all 7 of these heads. It says, and all the world wondered after the beast. Why? Because they had the power to deceive the world. All right. So when you go back here, Babylon symbolized the Roman Empire, but really it symbolized the Roman Empire in this time, which persecuted the Christians, because they did it here too. They persecuted the Israelites. Others see Babylon as a general metaphor for any corrupt world system, not a specific nation. Well, not all corrupt world systems are making the world rich through the abundance of their delicacies. Matter of fact, let me get that real quick. So I wanted to go through the book of Revelation 18, but I may just hit like some major points in here. And we're just going to go jump to the 9th verse. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her torment. Yeah, because matter of fact, let's read the 8th verse. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord who judgeth her. Right, and this fire here that the Lord is going to destroy her with, this is going to be the lake of fire. You got to picture it like this. You go to type in world map. Let's just type in world map. Right? Let's go to images. Now let's pull up a world map. Let me see if I can get a good one. Matter of fact, this one is good right here. Let's open this up. All right. Now you see, this is the world. This is a world map. You got Asia. These are so-called European nations. Turkey. The Levant. You have or the Levant is right down here, because this is the Red Sea. Iraq, Iran, all in that area. So-called Africa, South America, and this is North America. Now we're looking at a bird's eye view. So looking down, right, when the Apostle John, which was in the chariot of Yahushua, was looking down, just imagine all of this massive land here, all of this on fire. Now, would that look more like a lake of fire, or would like a little stream somewhere down here, somewhere in this area, a little stream of fire, a river? Would that look like a lake of fire, or would this look like a lake of fire from a bird's eye view? All of this massive land here. And the answer is, this is the lake of fire. All right. It says, I'll read that again. Therefore shall her place come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and it says, and she shall be utterly burnt with fire, for strong is the Lord power who judgeth her. Right, because the Most High is going to judge her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Yeah, because why are they going to lament for her? Because they're not going to be able to continue to make the money that they were making at one time. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived Salaki already read that, standing afar off, because they're going to be, some of them are going to be in their land. You know, because Vocab said that the whole world is just going to be destroyed and blow up. So where are these people going to come from that are going to be bewailing this place, standing afar off in other parts of the world, if the whole planet is going to explode? That just shows you the stupidity of these Christians, even the ones that went to college. It says, standing afar off for fear of a torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Right, because it's not going to take long for this whole massive land over here called America to be totally engulfed in flames from those missiles and from the lasers from the chariots. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. And you see all of this is coastline in America. All of this is coastline. Boom, boom, all the way up. Bam. All the way on the west coast. All of this. This is all coastline. You see? So if all of this is coastline, that means that ships are docking all throughout these regions, all throughout. And this is how these nations are getting rich, because they're bringing their shipping containers here. And those shipping containers, are, depending on where they're going, are being dropped off in certain ports and then transported by trucks all throughout the interiors of America. You see? And this is how the merchants of the earth are getting rich. Because next time you go to the store, look at the different products. You know, like if you go into a hardware store, if you go into like Home Depot or something like that, or if you go anywhere, look at the tags of these different things where they made. You know, you have a vase, you have forks, you have spoons, you have, plates, you have different things. Just look at where it's made in China, made in Taiwan, made in Bangladesh. So all of these nations are getting rich off of the consumers here in America. Okay. No, America ain't gonna be made great again. America's gonna be burnt up in a nuclear fire. America is Babylon the Great, and in America, Babylon the Great is gonna go down in flames because the Lord is gonna burn it up. So it says Revelation 18:12. So when these things happen and America is destroyed, no one's gonna be able to buy. Yep, mostly made in China, as the elder pastor just said. Yep, you got, and even the American flag. I believe even those MAGA hats say made in China. It says the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all the ironwood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble. So when you go to, I like to mention, New York, because I'm more familiar with it. You have the wholesale district. You have a bunch of different stores, all bunched up together, and you can go. You can either you want to buy sunglasses, you could buy sunglasses by the bulk. You can get fragrances, oils, incense. You could get urns. You can get Persian rugs. You can get, baby carriages. Just different, knickknacks, perfumes. If you want perfumes, colognes, different, body stuff for the body, like so-called toiletries. So all throughout that wholesale district, you're going to see all of these different things. You're going to see some stuff made out of wood. You want to get an incense holder, depending on what type you want. There's nothing there that you can't buy. Then you have sections where you have, they sell flour, they sell wheat, they sell spices. You can buy it by the ounces, you can buy it by the pounds. So all throughout America, this is what's laid out all throughout America. But I just like to use that because I know the layout a little better than New York. So this is how all these nations are getting rich from America. And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots. Your chariots goes into the modern day cars. Of course, it's not going to say a modern day car because the term modern day car didn't exist back then. They didn't have, the mode of transportation was either horseback, mule, a horse and buggy, chariot, but they didn't have the terminology of car. They didn't have the car set up with the engine and, you got to put oil in it, you got to put gas in it. They didn't have those terms back then. It says, and slaves and souls of men. Yeah, because you still have slavery here. The average working American is a slave. Because if you're working for a wage, you're pretty much a slave. If you're an employee, an employee-employer relationship is master-slave relationship. You see? It says, and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee. Right. This is all, these, the good times and the, going out and partying and, this all they do. Anywhere you go in America, that's pretty much the mentality of the average American. It's party. So they're going somewhere to eat, get drunk, and that's pretty much it. It's just a debaucherous lifestyle. It says, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee. Right. And then when you look up these two words, dainty and goodly, the word dainty is where you get the Greek word liparos. And the word liparos pretty much goes into lipos, which is fat. Like you see there, lipos, grease. And that's the average American diet. Burgers, fries, sandwiches, and just everything greasy. And the biggest thing consumed is what? Anything that's fried. It gets crazy when they start frying pickles and frying ice cream and all that. It says things which pertain to a sumptuous and delicate style of living. And this is why people come to America, because America is that golden city. They're in their country, even though they come here, they see they're still raggedy as hell, but they make more money here and are able to save and send money back to their countries than they would in their own country. So this place has that luxurious, appeal to it, and also the diet. That's why you have people that are in so-called Europe or Asia, and they'll eat regular diets and in their homes, and they won't get obese. But they come here to America, they eat the same diet that they eat in their country, and they become obese because these foods here are not engineered the way that they're not natural. Put it to you like that. So when we go back to the word goodly, it goes back to the word lampros. Made me think of lamping. I'm lamping. This guy, Flavor Flav from Public Enemy. So it says here, shining, brilliant, clear, transparent, splendid, magnificent. Right. So it gives you that aura, that shine. But this is the main point here. Splendid thing, an example, luxuries or elegancies in dress or style. And this is why you'll go to places like San Francisco or New York or different major cities, and you'll have these name brand stores, whether it's, clothing, whether it's accessories or whatever the case may be, and they have these name brands that are very expensive, but coming to find out now that a lot of these things are being made in China and then shipped to, let's say, Italy, possibly, just so that they can pin a brooch or a button on it or something like that, just to say that it's authentically made in Italy or France or whatever the case may be. But you have all of these different major uh, name brands, Louis Vuitton, you got the Birkin bags, you got, um, Gucci. The list goes on and on and on. Hermes, and just like I said, the list goes on and on and on. And this is what people thrive for. This is what they want. They want to live that lavish lifestyle. And that's why they come to America until they get here. They find out how fucked up it really is. So let me read that again. And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty, the fats, and goodly, living sumptuously, dressing, to a T, are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. Right? Because once this place goes down, you're never going to see another place like this ever again. Once America is destroyed, there will never be another Babylon the Great, ever. This is the last hurrah. This is the last. No, matter of fact, let me go real quick to, it's the last hurrah. It was a precept that just came to mind. It just escaped me that fast. Things are dainty, goodly departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. Damn. All right, no worries. So let's go back. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. Why? Because they won't be able to sell. And saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen. So it wasn't really clothed in fine linen, but the appearance and the way that they projected it and the way that they advertised it was like a golden city. Just like, for instance, right? You have Lazarus and the rich man, right, which is a parable. And in this parable, right, it spoke about, this is Luke 16, and we're going to go straight to the point, 19. So there was a certain rich man, which represents the international bankers, Esau, which was clothed in purple and fine linen, right? So he was clothed in purple and fine linen, meaning he was rich and fared sumptuously every day. Yeah, so they never had a want for anything. Now we go from there to Revelation 17, right? And verse 4, and the woman, which is the same America, the same harlot, was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of a fornication. So this was what it appeared as: a woman decked out, the rich man clothed in purple, decked out, fared sumptuously every day. So that's what America is like. It's likened unto, a golden city. That's why the scriptures also refer to it as a golden city. Now, when we go back to Revelation 18 and 16, and saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches come to naught. So this gruel staking grind that you Edomites put the effort into when you conquered America, put Jake in captivity, built America, made it the empire that it is, got the world reserve currency power over the world. All of this that you did and all that hard work that you put in is going to go up in flames in an hour. It's going to be swept with the besom of destruction. For in 1 hour so great riches has come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off. So you're not going to have a big stink if the ancient Babylon over there in Iraq gets destroyed, or if the Vatican gets destroyed. People are not going to, be saddened because they're not going to be able to trade or sell their wares there. because they ain't nothing going on in Babylon, ancient Iraq, Babylon, in that area, that got the world bustling. Ain't nothing going on in the Roman Catholic Church that has the world bustling and making all kind of money. So what place is this talking about? It's talking about here in America, but the name America didn't exist until 1507, which is a feminine way of saying Amerigo. Because when you're dealing with land is feminine. Earth, Arataza. All right. It says, stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? Yeah. And even in the 17th chapter, it tells you in the 18th verse, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city, letting you know that it's a metaphor or a symbol for something. It's a great city. So America is that great city. And it gives you more clues, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Because America has that sway over these nations, not because they want to, but because in order for them to participate and get these riches, they have to comply. You see? So let's see what else we got here. Right here, there is no explicit biblical support for equating America with Babylon. It's an interpretation, not doctrine. Well, the biblical support comes through prophecy. Prophecy is what dictates who this is speaking about. Because when the Lord said, the disciples asked, what is the sign of that coming of the end of the world? When you see these signs, what does that mean? That's not a doctrine. That's just, those are signs. No, these are things to look for that the Lord mentioned in his speech to them that were going to happen prior to him coming back. So when we take the prophecies in the scriptures and we apply them to this place, America, and everything fits, then guess what? If the glove fits, you can't acquit. And everything fits America as being Babylon the Great. Nothing else on the planet fits. There's no people on the planet Earth trying to be like any other nation but like America. This is why you have all these different restaurants and corporations and different American ideologies brewing heavy in these different nations. You got children, in these different nations growing up speaking perfect English in those lands where their forefathers spoke their language, and if they did speak English, it would be with an accent. They have no accents. Why? Because America is the greatest influence on the planet. You see? Conclusion, the idea that America is Babylon the Great is a symbolic and prophetic interpretation. Yeah, but it's still Babylon the Great. Because you can't put that on anybody else. Not a universally accepted belief. Well, that's true. It's not a universally accepted belief because this is not for the universe. This is only for the elect. Let's go to, okay, John chapter 14. There's another one if I can remember. Yep. Let me just get that real quick so I don't forget it. All right, so let's go back. This is St. John chapter 14, verse 17. Even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him, but you know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. So the world cannot receive this message, right? And then when we go to Romans 11:7, what then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So only the elect are going to receive it. So yeah, it's not a universal belief, and it's not supposed to be, because of the truth is not going to be accepted worldwide. But what is going to be accepted is false doctrine, false dogmas like Christianity and others. It depends on one's theological perspective, especially how literally or symbolically one reads apocalyptic scriptures. No, it depends on the prophets breaking it down. Because not anybody could just pick up the Bible. I mean, anybody can pick it up and read it, but not everyone is equipped or endowed with the Holy Spirit to break them down, to break it down. 2 Peter 1:19, we have a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto you do well that you take heed as unto a light that shineth in a dark place until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts, which is Yahweh Shai. Knowing this first, that no prophecy of the scriptures of any private interpretation, for the prophecy came not in old time by the will of man, but the holy men of the Most High spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. So if the Holy Spirit is not riding with you, you're not going to understand it. Everything points directly to America. All these scriptures point directly to America being Babylon the Great. Just like all the receipts point directly to the microseop as being the MOTB. But you still have those that either don't see it or don't want to see it. It says it's important to approach such topics with critical thinking, historical context, and an understanding of different viewpoints. No, this is what causes confusion, the different viewpoints. There's only one interpretation. There's not many. We have a more sure word of prophecy. That's the bottom line. And then I typed in another one over here. This one was Is America Written in Prophecy? And they pretty much going to give you the same, the question of whether America is written in biblical prophecy has been debated for centuries, particularly among theologians, biblical scholars, and students of eschatology, the study of end times. The Bible does not mention America or the United States by name. Yes, and that's the point, because America or United States, America itself did not appear until 1507. So it's impossible for America to be written in the book of Ezekiel or in the book of Isaiah or in the book of Jeremiah, or in the book of Revelation. Babylon the Great, parentheses, America. No, it's not going to be written like that, because those terms didn't exist back then, just like the term nuclear missile didn't exist back then. The elements existed, but not created in that fashion of the instrument. It says, as it was written long before the country existed. However, some interpreters believe that America may be symbolically represented. Here's an overview of the main perspectives. And then it gives two perspectives and why it matters or doesn't. But the point is, you're not going to find America written as America in the Bible. It's not going to happen, because that term did not exist back then. Okay. So let's see what else we got. I'll just read these last couple of verses here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just read a couple more verses. It says, and they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. Ships, ports, shipping containers, bringing it to America for what? To get paid by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, as talking about the elect. For the Most High hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And good riddance. So, matter of fact, let me read this one more. Jeremiah 51 and 12. Set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon. Make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen. Prepare the ambushes. For the Lord hath both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. Right, because the Lord is going to bring it. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. So pretty much, your end is come. You've been weighed in the balance, and you have been found wanting. Your time is up, and your rulership is about to be cut short by Yahweh Bashem El Shai. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.